Hi everyone, welcome to Newsweek channel. Namaskar. First of all, before we start our mega show today, I thank everyone for the wonderful support they're giving. And while we create some new episodes on the latest happenings and the topics which are happening through the geopolitical situations in the world. So today's episode focuses on the SCO meet which will happen today. Obviously, Mr. Narendra Modi is in China at this point of time, and also the India-US trade relations which is happening. Now the first point is India-US trade relations. Just 2 days ago, on 27th August, the Atlantic Council, a Democrat-backed council, released a statement on India saying stop and reset, recalibrate your relations, otherwise you'll have to pay a heavy price. So this is something which has come out just a day before. Now let's try and evaluate, and I spoke in earlier videos, why did the tariff war even begin. Now there are 3 to 4 reasons to it. A major source of tension between the two nations, it is India and US, is the Trump's claim that he brokered the ceasefire between India and Pakistan during their conflict in May earlier this year. And that did not go very well with the Indian side or the Indian counterpart, Mr. Modi. So that is one of the reasons. The second one is just just after this, there was a G7 summit which happened, and the U.S. President, Mr. Trump, I'm sorry, the way we call it, Trumpet, inviting Modi and Modi refusing to they both were there in the G7 summit, but then during the summit, where this Trumpet was there for a very short time, and during this short time, after what he rushed back to US, before that he called Mr. Modi to US, and Mr. Modi declined that he has a preset itinerary which he would be following, and he has to visit some other countries, and hence he refused. Now this did not go well with the US president. So these are two things over here, and now it became more of an ego issue for the trumpet, that I inviting, and then Mr. Modi denying this and refusing not to make a visit. And the third point is the oil cartel, which we spoke in our earlier episodes. This is also one of the major reasons. Please understand the oil cartel thing. Oil cartel is basically controlled by some countries, and this is since decades. Now you have India entering that oil cartel is a major thing which happens, and US getting rattled by it, as we spoke in the earlier episode, that when it comes to oil reserves, the top 10 countries in the world, India does not feature anywhere in that. But when it comes to oil suppliers, India has come to the second position over there, and that is something which is bothering the US. The oil. Let's understand. Uh, the world power. If you have world power, one of the things is priority or is predominant is the oil cartel control. Now these cartel have a set of members over there. Now when you have a country like India who does not have oil reserves but comes over there in the second position as an oil supplier, it acts as a disruptor. And that is what has happened, and that is what has not impressed US too much, and that is one of the reasons again for this all tariff thing which you see over here. And we spoke extensively on these topics in our earlier episodes. So now what has happened is a federal US appeals court, right, has now ruled that the Trump tariffs are illegal. So a federal appeals court has ruled that most of Trump's tariffs are an overreach of his use of emergency powers as a president. The so-called reciprocal tariffs imposed on nearly every country the US trades with are being illegally imposed, the US Court of Appeals said on Friday, which was yesterday or day before yesterday. Now what happens next, after Trump tariffs are ruled illegal? So that is one of the questions. Now a federal US court has ruled that all these tariffs are illegal. Trumpet's tariffs are an overreach of his use of emergency powers as a president, right? Now the decision upholds a ruling in May from the Court of International Trade, which also rejected Trump's argument that his global tariffs were permitted under Emergency Economic Powers Act. Many of the tariffs that would be affected by the ruling stem from an announcement in April of a flat 10% rate on imports from all countries, which Trump said would even out unfair trade relations with the US. Now, the court did not halt the tariffs, but instead they would remain in place until mid October, setting up another legal challenge in the US Supreme Court. There are still a lot of unknown over here, but here's what we understand so far about the ruling and what it could mean for the US president's flagship policy, the tariffs. What did the appeals court say? In his decision, which was 7 is to 4, the appellate court backed a lower court's finding that Trump did not have the authority to impose global tariffs. This was largely because of the law Trump used to justify the policies, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, which the judges said did not grant the empower to impose tariffs, duties, or the of any kind of like, or the power to tax. Now, the US Court of Appeals rejected Trump's argument that the tariffs were permitted under his emergency economic powers, calling the levies, which is invalid, as contrary to law. As contrary to law. Trump immediately now criticized the judgment, which came out, taking to Truth Social in the hours after it landed to call the appeals court highly partisan and the ruling a disaster for the country. Now he says if allowed to stand, this decision would literally destroy the United States of America. What if the tariffs are ruled illegal now? Let's say the tariffs are ruled illegal when it goes to the US Supreme Court also. Now the Federal Appeals Court was divided 7 is to 4 in its decision that Trump's nearly universal tariffs are illegal. It has now given the US administration until mid October to appeal to the US Supreme Court on a case with implications for both the US economy and its trade relationship with the rest of the world. Now, if the Supreme Court affirms the decision, it could trigger uncertainty in financial markets. There will be questions over whether the US will have to pay back billions of dollars that have been gathered by import taxes on products. It could also throw into question whether major economies like the UK, Japan, South Korea are locked into the individual trade deals they secured with the US ahead of the August deadline. Now, other trade deals currently, being negotiated could also be thrown into a chaos. Now, coming to the next topic, which is the SCO, right? Now, Russian President Vladimir Putin and Indian Prime Minister Modi are among the 20 world leaders attending a regional security summit, which is the SCO summit in China. Now, ahead of the annual gathering of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which is the SCO in the port city of Tianjin, Modi is holding talks with the Chinese President Xi Jinping. It is Modi's first time in China in 7 years. In the last 7 years, Modi did not visit China due to the deteriorating relations which happened in the past. Now, a New York Times report published on Saturday claims an India visit is no longer. This is something which we'll discuss later. So, Prime Minister Modi met Chinese President Xi Jinping on Sunday on the sidelines of the 25th meeting of the heads of state. So PM Modi and Xi Jinping now both on Sunday, that is today, highlighted the importance of good India-China ties that turned sour over the past couple of years, mainly due to the tensions along the border, which is the LAC. The Indian leaders' attendance and the sit down with Xi Jinping's remarks, a milestone in relations between Beijing and New Delhi, which have begun to ease their frictions, a shift that becomes more valuable to India in the wake of surprise negative turn in US-India ties in recent weeks. Now, in between, we get a news that through a New York Times that there is a possibility that the US president, right, who was supposed to visit India later in the year, right, and the New York Times claims that it is no longer on Trump's agenda, the India US visits, and US president is likely to skip the upcoming Quad summit. So this is a recent development which has happened, that the U.S. President, Trump, will not be attending the Quad summit and will not be making his India visit. Great. So coming back to the SCO summit, right? Now this trip will also give Modi an opportunity to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin, because Putin, is also traveling for the SCO summit, and with the two expected to hold bilateral talks on Monday, right? Now, what is happening over here is that when you have Putin, you have the Chinese president, you have the Prime Minister Modi over there. There are going to be crucial talks, with respect to SEO and how the BRICS would take an approach with respect to the Trump's tariff war which is happening. Because don't forget, we discussed in the last episode that Trump has also said he would penalize China with 200% tariffs if there are rare earth magnets, which the China has restricted on the exports of them. Now, the key takeaway of today's meet with Xi Jinping and Narendra Modi, right? Now, there's one for starters: direct flights to Kailash Mansarovar Yatra would resume. So, the welfare of 2.8 billion people is linked to bilateral cooperation between India and China. PM Modi said, and also added that the direct flights between the two countries are being resumed. The Prime Minister Modi also made a mention of the resumption of the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra, which was stalled since last 5 years due to COVID related restrictions. Now, Xi Jinping says over here in today's meet with Mr. Modi that it's vital to be good neighbors. So he said, at the meet, which comes in the backdrop of both India and China facing U.S. President Trump's, tariffs, that it is vital for both the countries to be friends and good neighbors amid a changing world or the changing scenario. Now, the elephant and the dragon must come together. This is what was said by Xi Jinping also. The world is going towards transformation. China and India are two of the most civilized countries. He said we are the world's two most populous countries and part of the global south. It is vital for these two countries to be friends. It is vital because we are neighbors, and the dragon and the elephant have to come together. This is what the Chinese president said. There's another thing which came up, which is that Xi Jinping also focused on, we are not a threat to each other. So the Chinese state media reported that Xi Jinping emphasized in the meeting that China and India are each other's development opportunities rather than threats. The Chinese president said that the countries are at a critical juncture or a stage of development and revitalization, and should focus on development. That is what is being said. The other thing which came up was the border issues, don't, and this is what the Chinese president said: border issues don't define the overall India-China's ties, right? So he said at a meeting between the China-India relations can be promising, stable, and far-reaching, right? This has come from the Chinese state media again. The Chinese president also urged that both the countries should not let border this issue define the overall relationship of the Sino-India. And he requested to everyone that let's ensure that these two things, where we talk about the China and India border, right? These two borders should not be a factor of which could influence the ties between the India and the China. So let's see how this all pans out. I know the SEO summit is going to be very exciting, and the US and the West would be surely and keenly looking into this. With that, I thank you for watching this episode, and a request to everyone to like the video, subscribe, and share this with your friends. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.